because it's something that the producers in my business mastermind use to bring in an extra $1,000 to $3,000 a month from simply just letting artists know that they're offering this. Some of you may be doing this or doing something similar to this and just didn't have a name for it, but I don't hear people talking about it very often, so I figured, hey, let's dive into it. So it's really exactly what it sounds like it is. You're producing an alternative version or not alternative, an alternate version or different version for an artist of a previous released song. It doesn't have to be previously released, but usually it is, because this kind of plays into that, and I'll explain that here in a second. You could call this a remix, although it can really be done in any genre. I mean, most of the time, remixes are like electronic music. Not always, but you don't have to necessarily be a remixer to do this. You're literally just taking a song from one version into a different version. Sometimes that's genre, style, and we'll explain why we would want to do that. So yes, same principle applies. You could use this. Like, I'm kind of surprised I don't see, there's so many electronic music producers that crush it at remixes, and they're fine, maybe remixing popular songs or whatever. Like, they could be charging artists for this. I mean, just like a label pays a fee for that, artists want remixes too. So remix, alternate version, whatever you want to call it. But it's a cool thing to add, because really the goal is for it to sound different enough from the original while still supporting the song. Okay, it's not a remake. You don't want to, piss off the original producer because you're like, oh, I'm just going to one up this guy's version. The purpose of this is to sound different enough from the original while, it's still supporting the song, the lyrics and the melody still being a good song. So how does this benefit the artist? Like, why would artists want to hire a producer or studio to do this? Well, number one, it's leveraged, right? They've already done the work. They've written the song, they've sang the song, it's done. They don't have to, do any more work, really. So it's very leveraged. It gives them more content and releases, which obviously artists are always looking for new content ideas and things to do, and many of them kind of struggle with that side. So boom, it's another built-in piece of content that they can milk for a couple of months. It gives them more releases. Obviously, the more releases they have leads to more revenue, and it gives momentum for the original release, just similar to a remix, right? You hear like an original song, and then there'll be a cool remix of it. I'm a little late to the game, but I've been digging that St. John Roses remix. Sorry, I forgot the remixer's name, but it's really cool. I listen to it back to back. The original version, which is like super slow, and then this sped up kind of fun electronic version. So it's a cool way to use to promote the original release. Sometimes the remix becomes bigger than the original release, which is the case I just mentioned in many cases. Tove Lo comes to mind, Santigold, lot of instances where that has happened. So it could be a cool thing for the artist in that sense. It also allows them to, again, without doing any other work, because they've already made the song, cross over into perhaps different markets. Maybe you're doing like a Latin version of the song. I mean, that you may have to change some lyrics, bad example, but let's say they don't have many rock fans, you do a rock version of it, or they're doing acoustic singer-songwriter stuff, and you make a more electronic pop version of it. Again, it opens it up to different markets, more fans, more opportunities, different playlists, all that kind of stuff. You get the point. And different purposes. Maybe you want to take a song someone did, and the purpose of this is more for sync, so maybe you're doing a trailer kind of sounding version of it, or a more sparse version that's going to be used in the background. So they can use it for various purposes and to break into new markets. It's also pretty cost effective. Again, they've already done the recording, they've written it. They're just hiring a producer to do the track. It takes less time. We'll talk about that in a second. Generally, since it's less work on your part, it's more cost effective for them. So, real life example here. Um, my production company back in the day, probably, what is it, 4 years ago? Yeah, so I guess around 2016, back when I was still managing the songwriting team, the production business, we met an artist named Anna Mae, super talented, but she was just doing, kind of acoustic guitar, her singing, very rootsy folk Americana, nothing wrong with that. But we just really dug her voice. She had a cool voice, and she wrote good songs, and we sat down with her and we're like, hey, would you be open to us doing like an alternate version of this song? I think it was called Out of My League, and we shortened it to League. And she was like, yeah, no sweat. So came in, kind of created this moody electronic pop version of it, completely different from the folk Americana version. You can, go check it out. It got, 8,000 streams on SoundCloud, nothing crazy. But what it did for her is the sync agent that was working with us at the time was like, yo, who's this singer? Who is this, whose voice is this? We told her, oh, it's this chick, Anna Mae. She's dope. And they started doing sessions, and she got in with that sync agent. I think one of her first placements was like commercial that aired during the Olympics. Ultimately, she went on to sign with Prescription Songs, big publishing company, as a writer. And is pretty much doing kind of electronic pop stuff now and sync stuff. So you never know where it could be. Obviously not taking credit for this person's entire career, but the point of this is just to show that like it can add a lot of value and benefit to the artist in a way that it can open up new doors and different doors that they may just have not thought about, which is pretty cool. So how does it benefit your business as a producer or studio? Number one, it opens up your client base to artists in other genres. For example, we don't produce, or when I ran the production company, we didn't produce, acoustic folk acts really. Just wasn't, there was just other people around that kind of nailed it at that stuff, better off going with them. So we never really had a chance to work with them. And there's probably a lot of genres that normally you wouldn't go after clients there. You may feel like, oh, that person is in a genre that is kind of out of my comfort zone. Well, now you have a way larger client base, right? Because you can work with an artist in any genre because you're kind of doing an alternate version in whatever your specialty is. So that's pretty cool. It opens up the opportunity for different clients you wouldn't have worked with. Two, it takes less time. The pre-production process is generally shorter. There's generally no writing sessions because the song's already written. They're just sending you the multi-tracks. There's no, vocal recording and editing because the vocals are done and already ready to go. You may do some processing on it or whatever, but all the nitty-gritty stuff is pretty much done, which is cool. So you can turn them around pretty quick. It also, this is a big one, it solves the I'm not ready problem, right? Like one of the frustrations with, producer or studio when you're out trying to get clients, it just may not be that like the timing is wrong, right? Like maybe they just released something, or maybe they're still writing and they're not ready for you yet. They don't need you yet. Well, this is cool because if they have a song released, in the past year or two, maybe longer than that, it may not be relevant to what they're doing, but if they've had a recent release or want to rehash an old release, boom, they're ready to go. There's kind of not a bad time to do this, so you can position it to them that way and say, hey, listen, like, do you have old songs that are just kind of sitting out there that we could do alternate versions of to kick that back up? Or again, you could say, hey, you released this 2 months ago, this could be used as content to continue promoting that original release. So that's what's cool about it. You don't have to wait for them to quote unquote be ready. It can be at any time in their cycle there. And it could be an add-on for current clients. So I'll have producers that I consult. Basically what they'll do is they'll just build this in up front. They'll say, hey, listen, we're going to do this original. The song is dope. Let's do your vision of it because that's what's going to support it the best. And then what I also want to do, since the multi-tracks are already there, vocals are done, you've done all the work, you're keep doing what you're doing, working, playing shows, all that kind of stuff behind the scenes. I'm going to build out, a sync version of this song. I'm going to do a, electronic remix of this song. And that way I'll just build it in to a nice, nice price for you. That way you can just cover all of it and you have a ton of promotional content for that single. So it's a cool way to, I hate the word upsell, but you know, add value to the client and their project if they need it. Don't just like upsell this to people for the hell of it, if it makes sense for what they need and what their goals are. So that's how it benefits your business. The process is pretty straightforward. This may bore some of you, but I'm trying to do a better job of, we got some viewers that are kind of newer to client work and newer in the process, and I'm trying to meet them where they are as well. So the process, obviously, number one, sitting down with the artist and determining the reasoning and the goal behind the alternate version. Is this so they can get into different playlists that they normally wouldn't get on? Is it because they want, to go after a certain type of sync placement? Maybe it's this up-tempo song, but hey, I want to get in-show placements in Grey's Anatomy, so I need like a soft piano version. Cool. Whatever it is, get clear on why you're doing it. That's important. That's going to determine, obviously, how you produce it. Number two, obvious, collect the vocal multi-track so you have something to build around. Three, I don't always recommend this. Generally, if you're a working producer and you're good at what you do and the client likes you and hires you, you've done pre-pro, just go for it. There's no point in taking the songs like in little chunks. Like, they're hiring you for your thing. It's easier just to strip something back if they don't like it. That's why some producers, it takes them months to produce a song. It's like, just produce it and you're good. It'll be fine. But in this scenario, I do recommend trying like a test part, maybe just a chorus or a verse chorus, just to make sure the direction is right. What can happen sometimes is they're so used to the original version, and even though they're excited about making this alternate version, it kind of shocks them a little bit. So maybe you want to just make sure they dig the direction before diving all the way in this scenario. Obviously, on approval, knock it out of the park, and if you can, discuss the release strategy then, right? Because generally this is for a different purpose from what the original song was, so let's talk about that. Doesn't do any good for the song if it's just sitting there and no one is listening to it. So if you can help with that, or refer them to someone that can help with that. So some common questions. We'll wrap it up here with three common questions and then just kind of an add-on that I wanted to mention. Number one, how do I land these kinds of projects? So I'm just gonna two options here. One, obviously, if you have if you have a client base already, then this is something that I would be hitting up every one of your clients tomorrow and saying, hey, I got an idea. Like, I want to chat about the song we just did a month ago, or I want to chat about the song we did last year. And just chat with them about the idea. Don't hard sell them. Just be like, cool, what's going on with the track? Were you happy with the release? I had some ideas about how we could, get some more mileage out of it in a cost-effective manner if you're interested in chatting about it. Obviously, if you got a clientele, just dive in. You'll get some projects. If you get a project, drop a comment. Let me know. If you're newer to the game and haven't worked with some yet, the best, it's going to sound pretty basic here, but I've had clients go into, don't be spammy or weird, but you can offer this, just offer it to a couple of artists who you dig, you can make a post in a Facebook group or on Reddit or wherever, musicians are hanging out and say, hey, listen, I'm trying this thing. I do this style. I'm looking for artists in this style. I'll try it out, no charge. I'll do a chorus or something. And then that's it. And then get a conversation, try it out. And if it makes sense, then you can say, hey, listen, if you want me to do the whole thing, I'd be happy to. Here's what that would look like. So that's the easiest way, is just to kind of show people you can do it if you're new. The third way is obviously this is getting a slightly more advanced, but if you know what you're talking about, you can actually make some content around the points I'm making in this video, right? Of why if you got a little bit of a following, people follow you on Facebook or Instagram or something, make some content about this idea and why this makes sense. You can steal all the bullet points from this video for all I care. And then artists that are engaging with that content, they obviously find that interesting, use that as an in to say hello and chat with them about it. See, have you done this before? Like, what's going on with the current releases? Where are you at? that's how I would dive into doing it. You could also like maybe mention if you're on Sound Better, use like a freelance platform. Maybe you can bring it up there. Second question is, what do I charge? The age-old question that no one can really answer for you. But one thing I will say is, generally these are less work. Now they're not that much less work. You're still, building out a track and mixing if you mix, or maybe you hire out a different mixer, whatever you do. It's not that much less work, but it's probably 75% less work. You don't have to do the writing sessions. You don't have to do vocal recording, editing, all that kind of stuff. So, what makes it's got to be obviously a good enough deal. It has to make logical sense to the artist to invest in doing it. And if they're seeing it as like, okay, well, I have to pay, the same amount I paid to get it produced, I don't really know. But if it's a little less, I would aim for maybe 60 to 80% of what you normally charge. Again, it depends on, I don't know who's watching this. You may be a producer that's pretty busy. I mean, you don't have to lower your rate then. I mean, if you're busy, just charge what you charge. But generally people do ask me, my clients will ask me, do we charge differently? And I say, yeah, it's normally, 60 to 80% of what your normal rate would be. I mean, make it a deal. And then of course, if you're building it in, like say, hey, we're going to do the original song and an alternate version, then just, cut them a really gnarly deal. That makes logical sense. It's like, yeah, cool. It's this much, 30% more, but you really get 2 releases out of it. Usually makes sense for them to do that. How long should it take? So, obviously it's going to come down to how quickly you can produce and how efficient you are. Guys, those of you who have been working for a while, you've got workflows. Those of you who are newer to working with clients and getting songs done, may take a little longer. But what's cool about it, I mean, really, you have, a 30-minute, hour-long pre-pro call with them. You get the multi-tracks. You do a test. Maybe that takes you 3-4 hours. If they approve it, then cool, produce out the song. It's another 10 hours on average. Get it approved, and then if you mix a couple hours there, if you farm it out, then obviously you don't, saves your time there. If you farm it out to someone else, really a day or two, you can turn these around in, as long as you set expectations with the client of when they need to get, their thoughts back to you. A lot of people don't. In one of my recent videos, someone mentioned that, one of the issues with client projects that it takes 3 months. Well, that's a problem. 3 months is long. That means there's not a process. There's no expectations being set with the clients. There's bad time management going on. So 3 months is a little hefty. So I would take a look at that. But in general, these will take less than a traditional start to finish project because you're cutting pieces out. Yeah, that's what's cool about it. I mean, if you work a full-time job or a part-time job, you're not producing full-time yet, you could squeeze these in and it's kind of time effective, right? You could do 2 or 3 a month, bring in a couple extra $100 or a couple extra grand, again, depending on how confident you are with all this stuff. So it's pretty cool. One final tip here before we wrap up. Use the instrumental. Remember that you're producing this. Now they have an entirely new instrumental version that can be used for things like, licensing and stuff like that. So don't forget the instrumental. Make sure the client knows, like, hey, you have the vocal version, then you have this new instrumental that you can also use for things. I mean, that's really with any song, but I just haven't brought it up in a video, so there we go. All right, that's it. If you feel like I didn't just completely waste your time, then please consider scuffing that subscribe button's kicks and turning on notifications. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.